Hey guys, tonight we are abandoning the comforts of air conditioning and memory foam to wake up in the shadow of the pyramids. We're stepping into the sandals of a common laborer in ancient Egypt to see if you have the grit to endure just 24 hours in the scorching embrace of the Nile Valley. You might picture yourself lounging like Cleopatra, peeling grapes, but the reality is gritty, sweaty, and dangerous. Honestly, without an antibiotics or SPF 50, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know down in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. I love seeing how far we travel together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your journey begins not with a blaring digital alarm, but with a sensation of slowly baking. You open your eyes, and for a moment, the total darkness confuses you. The air is thick, still, and smells faintly of wood smoke, dried mud, and unwashed linen. You aren't in your bedroom anymore. You're lying on a raised mud brick bench that is fused directly into the wall of a small, square room. There is no mattress, only a woven reed mat that has imprinted a lovely geometric pattern into the side of your face and hip. Your modern back, accustomed to ergonomic support, is screaming in protest. You try to stretch, but your hand hits the rough, plastered wall immediately. The space is tiny, functional, and already warm. You sit up, groggy and stiff. The silence of the desert night is beginning to fracture. Somewhere outside, a donkey brays, a harsh, sawing sound that echoes off the limestone cliffs, and a chorus of geese begins to honk. This is the ancient equivalent of the garbage truck backing up outside your window at 5 a.m. You swing your legs over the side of the bench, and your bare feet touch the floor. It's hard-packed earth, cool for now, but give it an hour, and it will be radiating heat. You are in a workers' village, likely Deir el Medina, or perhaps the barracks of the pyramid builders at Giza, depending on which dynasty we've landed in. But regardless of the era, the morning routine of the common man is universally humble. You trudge toward the doorway. There is no door, just a woven mat hanging over the opening to keep out the worst of the dust. You push it aside and step out into the narrow alleyway that serves as the street. The sky is a deep, bruising purple, transitioning rapidly to a pale, washed-out blue. And there, looming on the eastern horizon, is the reason you are awake. Ra, the sun disk. In the modern world, the sun is just a celestial body that dictates whether you wear a jacket or a t-shirt. Here, the sun is a god, a king, and a tyrant. Even at this early hour, you can feel the weight of it. It's not just light, it's a physical pressure. As you stand there, rubbing the sleep from your eyes, you notice the landscape. It is a world of stark duality. To your left, down towards the river, lies the Kemet, the Black Land. This is the fertile floodplain, the rich, dark silt deposited by the Nile that smells of life, growth, and damp earth. It is a ribbon of green survival cutting through a continent of death. Because to your right, stretching out into infinity, is the Deshret, the Red Land, the desert. It is chaotic, sterile, and endless. It glows with a terrifying orange hue as the sun breaches the horizon. The ancient Egyptians believed that the Red Land was the domain of Seth, the god of chaos, and looking at those jagged cliffs and rolling dunes, you can see why. If you wander out there without water, the Red Land will kill you in hours. You take a deep breath, and immediately you taste it. Sand. It's not just on the ground, it's airborne. It's a fine, powdery silica that coats your tongue, crunches between your molars, and settles into the corners of your eyes. You will spend the next 16 hours trying to get the grit out of your mouth, but you never will. It's a permanent seasoning to life here. In fact, this constant abrasive intake is why so many older Egyptians have teeth worn down to the nubs. But that's a problem for future you. Right now, present you is just trying to wake up. You look around at your neighbors emerging from their own mud brick boxes. They look tired. Life expectancy here hovers around the 35 or 40, and the faces around you are weathered by the elements. Skin is deeply tanned and leathery. Eyes are squinting against the glare. The houses themselves are a subject of some curiosity. Historians still argue whether these worker cottages were built with high clerestory windows to allow hot air to escape, acting as a primitive air conditioning system, or if they were largely windowless bunkers designed to keep the sun out at the cost of ventilation. Standing here, sweating already in the dawn light, you're inclined to believe the windowless bunker theory. The air feels stagnant, trapped between the canyon walls. You instinctively reach for a glass of water, but there is no tap. There is a large ceramic jar in the corner of your courtyard, covered with a wooden lid to keep out the flies. You lift the lid. The water inside was hauled from the canal yesterday. It's tepid and slightly brown. You cup your hands and drink. It tastes earthy, like the river, with a hint of clay from the pot. It's not refreshing, but it's hydration. You splash some on your face, the water evaporating almost instantly on your skin, leaving a faint, salty residue. The village is waking up fully now. The sound of stone hammers on copper chisels begins to ring out, the morning maintenance of tools before the work gangs head to the necropolis or the construction site. You hear a mother scolding a child, the rhythmic thump, thump, thump of grain being ground into flour, and the low murmur of prayers being offered to household gods. Bess, the dwarf god of the household, grins at you from a small amulet hanging by the door. You give him a nod. You're going to need all the luck you can get. The sun has fully detached itself from the horizon now, hanging like a gold coin in the sky. The temperature jumps 10 degrees in as many minutes. You realize that your modern pajamas, or whatever you drifted off wearing, are entirely inappropriate. You are sweltering. The locals are wearing simple linen kilts or thin sheath dresses that allow the air to circulate. You, on the other hand, feel heavy and gross. Your skin feels tacky. The concept of a morning shower is a luxury for the nobility, those living in the villas with limestone bath slabs and servants to pour water over them. For you, hygiene is going to be a battle, and as you scratch at an itch on your scalp that seems to be moving, you realize the battle has already begun. That itch on your scalp is not going away. In fact, it's getting worse. You reach up to scratch again, digging your nails in, but this time you feel something distinct. A tiny, crawling movement against the pad of your finger. You freeze. You pull your hand away and squint at your fingertip in the growing light. There, struggling against the ridges of your fingerprint, is a louse. A fat, happy, well-fed louse. And looking at your reflection in the polished bronze disc serving as a mirror, you realize he has brought his entire extended family to the party. Welcome to the itchy reality of the ancient world. In modern times, lice are a kindergarten crisis, a reason for panic emails from the school principal, and a week of washing sheets in hot water. Here, in the Nile Valley, they are a plague. The warm, humid climate near the river is a perfect incubator for parasites. You might think the pharaohs and the high nobility are immune to this, sitting on their golden thrones, but you'd be wrong. Even the greatest kings scratched. The difference is they have a dedicated staff of servants whose only job is to nitpick their royal scalps. You, however, do not have a staff. You have a choice: suffer the itch or go for the nuclear option. You look around the small room and spot the solution resting on a wooden shelf. It is a razor, but let's manage your expectations right now. This is not the safety razor you have in your bathroom cabinet with 5 diamond-coated blades and a moisturizing strip of aloe vera. This is a curved piece of bronze, hammered thin and sharpened on a whetstone. It looks less like a grooming tool and more like a weapon found at a crime scene. It's heavy, the edges uneven, and it dulls after about 3 strokes. But the social norm here, and the only sanitary option, is hairlessness. You pick up the bronze blade. It's cool to the touch. You have no shaving cream, no aerosol foam that smells like menthol. Instead, you reach for a small jar of oil, likely castor oil or perhaps moringa oil, if you've had a good harvest. It's thick and viscous. You smear it over your scalp, matting down your hair. It smells faintly nutty and a little bit rancid as the fat has turned in the heat. Taking a deep breath, you bring the bronze to your forehead. The first scrape is audible. Shk. It doesn't glide, it drags. You can hear the hairs being severed, or rather sawed off, close to the skin. You wince. The bronze blade pulls at the follicles, and you have to use short, hacking motions to make any progress. You work your way back from the forehead, navigating the curves of your skull. It is a slow, methodical, and mildly painful process. You are essentially dermaplaning your entire head with a garden trowel. By the time you reach the back of your neck, your arm is tired, your scalp is stinging, and you have a few small nicks that are already welling with beads of blood. But the hair is gone, and with it, the lice. You run a hand over your newly bald head. It feels vulnerable, exposed. The air hits your skin directly, which is cooling for exactly 5 seconds before you realize that a bald head under the Egyptian sun is a recipe for catastrophic sunburn. You cannot go out like this. You need protection. You need hair. This brings us to one of the great ironies of ancient Egyptian fashion. You shave your head to stay cool and clean, only to immediately cover it with a heavy, thick wig. You reach for yours, hanging on a wooden peg. It's a massive, voluminous thing, made of human hair if you're wealthy, or sheep's wool and vegetable fibers if you're on a budget. Yours is the budget version. It's stiff, braided tightly, and dyed a deep, lustrous black. You pull it on. It settles over your head like a wool beanie. Instantly, the cooling effect of the shave is negated. Your scalp begins to sweat under the heavy fiber. It's like wearing a carpet on your head in the middle of July. But you look fantastic, or at least socially acceptable. The wig frames your face, signaling that you are a civilized member of society, not a peasant or a barbarian. Historians still argue whether the elaborate wigs depicted in tomb paintings were worn daily by commoners or reserved for festivals, but most evidence suggests that some form of head covering was standard for protection, even if it wasn't the ceremonial masterpiece you see on sarcophagi. Now that your head is sorted, you have to address the rest of your body. The air is dry, and the sun is merciless. Your skin will crack and peel if left untreated. You go back to the oil jar. Egyptians were obsessed with oils and unguents. It wasn't just vanity, it was medical necessity. You scoop out a handful of the grease and start rubbing it into your arms, chest, and legs. It takes a while to absorb. You feel slippery, like a basted turkey ready for the oven. This layer of oil acts as a barrier, trapping moisture and protecting your pores from the omnipresent dust. As you apply the oil, you might be tempted to reach for a scent cone. You've probably seen these in art, curious little white triangles sitting on top of the wigs of guests at a banquet. The traditional interpretation is that these were cones of solidified animal fat infused with myrrh or lotus flowers, and as the party heated up, the fat would melt, dripping a cooling, perfumed oil down the wearer's wig and shoulders. It sounds delightful in a messy, buttery sort of way. However, modern archaeologists have been debating this for years. No physical evidence of a wax cone has ever been found in a burial. Some scholars now argue that the cones were purely symbolic, an artistic shorthand for "this person smells good," or "this person is in a state of divine grace," rather than a literal lump of lard balancing on their head. Since you don't have a cone handy, and the idea of rancid fat dripping into your eyes sounds unpleasant, you decide to side with the symbolic theory for today. You are now shaved, oiled, and wigged. You catch your reflection again. The heavy black wig contrasts sharply with your skin. The oil gives you a distinct sheen. To a modern eye, you look like you're in a costume for a community theater production of Aida. But here, you look ready for work. You feel a stray drip of sweat roll down from your temple, underneath the wig cap, tracing a path down your neck. You can't scratch it because you'll mess up the braids. You just have to let it roll. This grooming ritual has taken up precious time. The sun has climbed higher, and the light streaming into your courtyard has turned from soft gold to a harsh, bleaching white. The temperature has risen another 5 degrees. You haven't even had breakfast yet, and you are already uncomfortable. Your scalp itches, not from lice this time, but from the prickly heat developing under the wool. You realize that hygiene in the ancient world is just a trade-off. You trade the parasites for the discomfort of prevention. You wipe the excess oil from your hands onto a scrap of linen. Your skin feels heavy, coated in the protective grease. You are cleaner than you were when you woke up, technically, but you certainly don't feel fresh in the way a shower makes you feel. You feel prepared, armored. The oil is your shield, the wig is your helmet, and the razor was your sword. You have survived the morning battle against nature's smallest invaders. But now, your stomach gives a low, rumbling growl that echoes in the quiet room. The lice are gone, but the hunger is here. It's time to find out what passes for a balanced breakfast in the Bronze Age, and unfortunately for your dental health, it involves a lot more rocks than you're used to. With your scalp oiled and your wig securely, if uncomfortably, in place, you turn your attention to your wardrobe. You might be imagining flowing robes of diaphanous white silk billowing in the breeze like you're in a music video. Erase that image. Silk is thousands of miles and centuries away in China. Cotton is a rarity, known mostly in India, and won't be a staple here for a long time. You have one option: linen. Linen is the fabric of Egypt. It comes from the flax plant, which grows in the blue-flowered fields along the Nile. When harvested, the stalks are soaked, beaten, and spun into thread. The result is a fabric that breathes beautifully, wicking sweat away from the body, a miracle in this climate. But there is a catch. The high-quality royal linen that feels as soft as a worn-in t-shirt is reserved for the pharaoh and the priesthood. It is woven so finely, it's almost transparent. You, however, do not have royal linen. You have workers' linen. You pick up your kilt, or shendit. It's a simple rectangular piece of cloth that you wrap around your waist and tuck in at the front. As you run your fingers over the fabric, you realize it's not soft. It's stiff. It's coarse. It feels more like a burlap sack or a heavy canvased drop cloth than clothing. The fibers are thick and uneven. As you wrap it around your waist, the rough weave scrapes against your hips. It's starched, likely with a bit of flour paste to keep it looking crisp, which means every time you move, the fabric crinkles and chafes. You tie the knot at your waist. The fit is secure, but the sensation is abrasive. There is no underwear. The kilt is it. You feel a draft. It's a level of freedom that is both liberating and slightly alarming for someone used to the secure hug of elastic waistbands. You adjust the pleats, trying to get it to hang straight. This garment offers zero protection from the elements for your legs or torso. Your chest, arms, and calves are completely exposed to the sun, the wind, and the insects. The linen covers only your modesty, and barely that if a strong wind picks up. Now for the footwear. You look down at your feet, which are already dusty from the dirt floor. In the corner sit your sandals. They are made of woven papyrus reeds, or perhaps palm leaves. You pick one up. It is incredibly light, almost flimsy. It consists of a flat, woven sole and a thong strap that goes between your first and second toe, anchoring around your ankle. You slide your foot in. The sensation is crunchy. The dried reeds crackle under your weight. The sole is thin, maybe half an inch at best. It offers no arch support, no cushioning, no shock absorption. It is essentially a piece of dried grass tied to your foot. As you take a step, you can feel every pebble, every uneven ridge in the floor through the weave. These sandals are designed to protect the soles of your feet from the burning heat of the sand, not to provide comfort for a 10-mile hike. And yet, you will be walking all day. You wiggle your toes. The strap between them is rough and stiff. You can already tell that within an hour, it's going to rub the skin raw. Blisters are a guarantee. Many Egyptians, especially laborers, simply went barefoot to avoid this, carrying their sandals to save them for formal occasions or particularly hot patches of ground. You consider this. The floor is cool now, but by noon the ground outside will be hot enough to fry an egg, literally. You decide to keep them on. The blister seems like the lesser of two evils compared to second-degree burns on your soles. You stand there in your stiff skirt and crunchy shoes. You feel exposed. In the modern world, clothing is a shield. We have layers, undershirts, shirts, sweaters, coats. We are cocooned. Here, you are undeniably present in your environment. There is no barrier between you and the world. If a fly lands on your leg, you feel it. If the wind blows, you feel it. If the sun hits you, you burn. And speaking of burning, you realize you have forgotten something crucial. You are about to step out into a UV index of 11 plus. You have no hat. Egyptians didn't really do brimmed hats. The wig offers some protection for your head, but your face, your nose, your shoulders, they are targets. You grab a spare piece of linen cloth, a mantle, to drape over your shoulders. It's heavy and adds to the heat, but it might save you from blistering. You look down at your hands. They are soft, uncalloused, modern hands. Hands that type on keyboards and hold steering wheels. They are about to grip rough wooden tool handles, haul limestone blocks, and pull on hemp ropes. The rough linen of your kilt is already irritating the skin on your waist. The papyrus strap is digging into your toe. You haven't even left the house yet, and your wardrobe is actively fighting you. There is a psychological vulnerability to this attire as well. You feel small. In heavy boots and denim, you feel tough. In a skirt and grass slippers, you feel fragile. The environment feels bigger, sharper, more threatening. You are not conquering this landscape. You are barely tolerating it. You take a tentative step toward the door again. The papyrus sandals make a scritch sound on the packed earth. It's a dry, whispering noise that will become the soundtrack of your day. Scritch, 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 scritch. You adjust the heavy wig one last time, scratching underneath it where a drop of sweat is trickling down your neck. The oil on your skin feels sticky now, catching the dust that hangs in the air. You pause at the threshold. The sun is brighter now, hitting the limestone cliffs in the distance and reflecting a blinding glare. You squint. You don't have sunglasses. The ancient Egyptians used kohl, that black eyeliner you see in all the movies, not just for fashion, but to reduce the glare of the sun, like the black paint football players put under their eyes. You spot a small pot of galena paste near the mirror. You dip a little stick into the black powder and clumsily trace a line around your eyes. It stings a little, and you probably look like a raccoon that lost a fight, but immediately the glare softens. It works. The world is slightly less blinding. You are as ready as you will ever be. You are wearing a plant on your feet, a sack on your waist, a carpet on your head, and grease on your skin. You are a masterpiece of Bronze Age survival gear. But as you step out into the alleyway and the first blast of real heat hits you, a physical wall of hot air that smells of baking dust, you realize that your clothes are not going to save you. They are just going to accompany you while you suffer. Your stomach growls again, louder this time. The hunger is sharp. You need energy. You need food. But as you head towards the communal eating area, you should prepare yourself. The bread of life in ancient Egypt has a dark secret, and it involves destroying your smile one bite at a time. You follow your nose toward the source of the wood smoke. It leads you to a communal courtyard where breakfast is being prepared. In the modern world, breakfast is a symphony of choices: crunchy granola, silky yogurt, fluffy scrambled eggs, smoothies. Here, the menu is binary: bread and beer. That's it. That's the fuel that built the pyramids. You are handed a round, flat loaf of bread. It's still warm from the clay oven, which is a comforting sensation in your hands. It smells yeasty and slightly sour, like a good sourdough. You're starving, so you tear off a chunk and pop it into your mouth. You chew. Crunch. You freeze. Did you just break a tooth? You gingerly probe the inside of your mouth with your tongue. No, your tooth is intact, but something hard and gritty is definitely in the bread. You chew again, more cautiously. Crunch, grind, crack. It's like eating a sandwich that was dropped at the beach. This is the reality of Egyptian bread. The grain, emmer wheat or barley, is ground on a saddle quern. This is a large concave stone slab on which a smaller stone is rubbed back and forth to crush the kernels into flour. It's effective, but there's a major design flaw. The stones grind against each other. As the miller works, fine grit, sand, and tiny chips of rock are pulverized right along with the flour. It is impossible to sift it all out. Every bite you take is literally sanding down your teeth. This is why archaeologists can often determine the age of an Egyptian mummy just by looking at their molars. If the teeth are flat, worn down to the pulp, and riddled with abscesses, it's an older person. If they still have cusps, it's a youngster. You are currently accelerating your own dental aging process with every mouthful. The bread is dense, heavy, and filling, but the texture is essentially whole wheat with a side of gravel. You swallow the gritty bolus with difficulty. It sits heavy in your stomach. To wash it down, you are handed a ceramic bowl, not a cup, a bowl. Inside is a thick, murky liquid with a frothy head. This is Heket, beer. Now, pause. Put down your mental image of a crisp, golden pilsner or a hoppy IPA. Egyptian beer is not a recreational beverage for a Friday night. It is a nutritional staple, a liquid meal. It's made by half-baking loaves of bread, crumbling them into water with malted grain and letting the whole mess ferment in a jar. It is strained before serving, but strained is a relative term. You lift the bowl to your lips. The smell is pungent, yeasty, sweet, and slightly funky. You take a sip. It's thick. It has the consistency of a gruel or a very watery porridge. It's barely carbonated. The alcohol content is low, maybe 2% or 3%, just enough to kill the bacteria in the river water, but not enough to get you drunk before work. It tastes sweet, sour, and filling. It's essentially fermented bread soup. As you drink, you have to use your teeth as a sieve, again to catch the larger husks of grain that made it through the brewing process. It's a meal that requires effort to consume. But despite the texture, you feel the energy hitting your system. This is a calorie bomb. It's rich in B vitamins and carbohydrates. It is the Gatorade of the ancient world. Without this thick, sludge-like beer, the labor force would collapse. You sit on a low mud brick wall, chewing your sandy bread and sipping your porridge beer. Around you, other workers are doing the same. There is little conversation. Everyone is focused on fueling up. You notice their teeth as they chew. Some have missing incisors. Others wince as a particularly hard piece of grit hits a sensitive nerve. Toothache is a constant companion here. There are medical papyri filled with spells and prescriptions for teeth that gnaw, ranging from rinsing with sweet beer and celery to packing the cavity with a paste of cumin, incense, and crocodile dung. You decide to chew very, very carefully. The diet isn't entirely monochromatic, though. You spot a basket of onions and garlic being passed around. You grab a bulb of garlic. It's smaller and more potent than the ones you're used to. You peel a clove and eat it raw. It burns your tongue, but it cuts through the heaviness of the bread and beer. The Egyptians believed garlic and onions gave strength and prevented illness. Considering the antibacterial properties, they weren't wrong. If you were lucky, very lucky, there might be some dried fish or a few figs. But today, it's just the basics. Bread, beer, onions, the builder's breakfast. It sits in your stomach like a lead weight. You feel full, certainly, but also slightly bloated. The fermentation in the beer is already starting to bubble in your gut. You realize that digestive issues are probably just a part of the daily ambient noise of life here, along with the sand and the flies. You finish your bowl, wiping the last of the yeasty foam from your mouth with the back of your hand. You hand the bowl back to the woman serving, who dips it into a larger jar of water, gives it a cursory swish, and hands it to the next guy. Germ theory is thousands of years away. You try not to think about who used that bowl before you. The sun is fully up now. The sky is a blinding, cloudless azure. The heat is starting to radiate from the ground, warming your sandals. The shadow of the village walls is shrinking. You have fueled the machine. Your body has its carbohydrates, its hydration, and its grit. You stand up, brushing crumbs from your stiff linen kilt. The sand in your mouth is annoying, and you try to work it out with your tongue, spitting onto the dusty ground. It's futile. You will be crunching for the next hour. A foreman shouts something in a dialect you don't quite catch, but the meaning is clear. Move. The work gangs are assembling. You are not headed to an office cubicle. You are headed to the river. Your commute involves the Nile, the lifeline of this civilization, but also a superhighway for some of the most aggressive predators on the continent. You might think a boat ride sounds relaxing. It isn't, not when the boat is made of bundles of reeds and the water is teeming with creatures that see you not as a passenger, but as a snack. You leave the village behind, following the worn footpath that snakes down from the high desert plateau toward the valley floor. The transition is abrupt. One moment, your sandals are crunching on dry limestone and flint. The next, they are sinking into soft, yielding silt. You have entered the floodplain. The air here is different, heavier, humid, and thick with the smell of rotting vegetation, wet earth, and blooming lotus. It's a primordial scent, the smell of creation itself. Your commute today requires crossing the river to get to the quarry site or the construction zone on the other bank. You head toward a small landing stage where a cluster of boats is tethered. If you were expecting a sturdy wooden ferry with high sides and a safety railing, you are going to be disappointed. Wood is scarce and expensive in Egypt. It's imported from Lebanon and reserved for temple doors and royal coffins. For the likes of you, the vehicle of choice is the papyrus skiff. You approach your ride. It looks like a large basket that someone dropped in the water. It's made of bundles of papyrus reeds lashed together tightly with rope. It's shaped like a crescent moon, curving up at the bow and stern. You step in carefully. The entire boat depresses under your weight, the water bubbling up slightly through the reeds before the buoyancy kicks in. It feels squishy. It feels temporary. You are essentially standing on a floating salad. You push off from the bank using a long pole. The water of the Nile is opaque, a swirling brown-green soup of silt and life. It looks calm, glassy even, under the morning sun. But you know better. The surface is a lie. This river is a busy highway, and the traffic laws are dictated by apex predators who haven't evolved a sense of mercy in millions of years. Your first concern isn't the crocodiles, surprisingly. It's the river horse. You scan the water ahead, looking for ripples, for small, twitching ears, or the burst of spray from a nostril. The hippopotamus. In the modern world, hippos are often depicted as goofy, tutu-wearing ballerinas in cartoons. Here, they are the manifestation of Seth, the god of chaos and violence. They are territorial, aggressive, and fast. A bull hippo can snap a human in half with the casual effort you'd use to break a breadstick. History tells us that Menes, the legendary first pharaoh who united Upper and Lower Egypt, was supposedly killed by a hippo after a reign of 62 years. If the guy who conquered the entire Nile Valley couldn't survive a run-in with these beasts, your odds in a reed basket are not great. You see a disturbance in a patch of papyrus near the far bank, the swaying of the tall green stalks. You steer well clear. You hold your breath. If a hippo surfaces under your skiff, the boat will simply disintegrate, and you will be in the water. And you really, really do not want to be in the water. Because if the hippos are the loud, smashing threat, the crocodiles are the silent one. The Nile crocodile is a perfect biological machine. They can grow up to 20 feet long, and their camouflage is flawless. They look exactly like the logs and mud banks they rest on. You keep your hands and feet strictly inside the boat, no trailing your fingers in the cool water to refresh yourself. That is how you lose a hand. The Egyptians have a complicated relationship with these reptiles. They fear them, naturally, but they also worship them. Sobek is the crocodile god, a deity of power, fertility, and military prowess. In some temples, like at Kom Ombo, priests actually keep live crocodiles in sacred pools, feeding them choice cuts of meat and adorning them with jewelry. You try to imagine the job interview for the guy who has to put a gold earring on a crocodile. It's probably a high turnover position, but out here, in the wild river, there is no jewelry. There is just the cold, reptilian stare of a creature deciding if you look like an antelope. As you pull your way across the current, you mutter a quick spell. Magic, or Heka, is not just for priests. It's a daily tool for survival. You might recite a common incantation that commands the crocodiles to keep their mouths closed and their tails still. Do not lift thy face, O Sobek, you whisper. Keep thy teeth together. You might even make a specific hand gesture, extending the index finger and pinky while curling the middle fingers to ward off the evil eye. It feels a bit silly to your modern sensibilities, but when a log floats by a little too close, you find yourself doing it with great conviction. Despite the terror, there is a serene beauty to the commute. The river is alive. You see pied kingfishers hovering and diving like missiles into the water. White ibises pick through the mud on the banks. The wind catches the single square sail of a larger merchant barge moving upstream. This brings up a convenient geographical fact. The Nile flows north, but the prevailing winds blow south. This means travel is easy in both directions. You drift north with the current, and you sail south with the wind. It's a natural conveyor belt that allowed this civilization to flourish. However, historians still argue about exactly how the Egyptians utilized this highway for their heaviest loads. We know they moved massive obelisks and statues weighing hundreds of tons by barge, but the mechanics are debated. Did they wait for the annual flood to raise the water level, allowing them to float barges right up to the construction sites? Or did they dig massive, temporary canals to redirect the water? Some fringe theories even suggest they wetted the sand in front of sledges to reduce friction, a technique hinted at in tomb paintings, but only recently proven by physicists to cut the pulling force required by half. As you struggle just to keep your light skiff moving straight, the idea of moving 1,000-ton granite block on this water seems impossible. The sun reflects off the water, doubling the heat. The glare is intense. You can feel the sweat trickling down your back under the linen. The humidity here is much higher than in the village. It's sultry. You are rowing through a greenhouse. You are approaching the western bank now. The water becomes shallower, and you have to navigate through a thicket of reeds. This is the danger zone. The shallows are where the crocodiles like to ambush. You scan every shadow. You push the pole hard into the mud, propelling the skiff forward with a burst of speed. The front of your reed boat hits the mud bank with a soft squelch. You hop out quickly, glad to be on solid ground, even if that ground is mud. You pull the skiff up slightly so it doesn't drift away. You have survived the crossing. You check your limbs, 2 arms, 2 legs. Success. But your relief is short-lived. You look up at the path ahead. It leads away from the cooling breeze of the river back into the baking heat of the construction site. You have finished the commute, but the workday hasn't even started. And today, you are not sitting at a desk. You are a subject of the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh has some very heavy renovations planned. As you scrape the river mud off your sandals, you hear the distant rhythmic chanting of a work gang. It's a sound of coordinated exertion. You are about to join the corvée, the labor tax. In the modern world, you pay taxes with money. Here, you pay with your body. You pay with sweat. And looking at the size of the limestone blocks waiting to be moved, you realize the tax bracket you're in is decidedly painful. You trudge up the bank, your feet sinking into the hot sand. Ahead of you lies the work site, a hive of activity that looks less like a construction project and more like an insect colony. You're about to be introduced to the concept of corvée labor. In the modern world, when April rolls around, you file your taxes online, maybe complain a bit about the government taking a cut of your paycheck, and move on. Here, the state doesn't just want your money, though they'll take your grain too. They want your time. They want your sweat. Every Egyptian citizen is subject to the corvée, the mandatory conscription of labor for state projects. Unless you are a high-ranking scribe or a priest, you owe the pharaoh a few weeks or months of your life every year. You might be digging irrigation canals to prepare for the flood, harvesting crops on royal lands, or, in your case today, dragging massive blocks of stone to build a monument that will last forever. You are essentially paying your taxes with a herniated disc. You join a group of men gathered around a massive limestone block resting on a wooden sledge. There are no wheels here. The Egyptians knew about the wheel. They used it on chariots, but for moving heavy loads over shifting sand, wheels are useless. They just sink. So you use a sledge, a heavy wooden sled that glides, theoretically, over the ground. An overseer with a stick barks an order. You grab a thick rope made of twisted palm fiber. It's rough and prickly. It immediately bites into your palms. You wrap it around your hand for a better grip, but you know this is going to tear your skin off. You position yourself in a line of 20 other men. You are now a single gear in a human engine. Pull, the overseer shouts, or rather, the ancient Egyptian equivalent, likely a rhythmic chant. You lean forward. You dig your sandals into the sand. You strain. The rope tightens, creaking under the tension. For a moment, nothing happens. The stone is immovable. It is a piece of the earth itself, stubborn and heavy. Then, slowly, with a grinding protest, it lurches forward. You stumble, catching your balance, and keep pulling. Heave, step, heave, step. The work is agonizingly slow. You move at a pace of maybe a mile an hour. The sun beats down on your back, turning your skin a furious shade of red. The linen kilt offers zero protection. The oil you applied earlier is now mixing with sweat and dust to form a gray paste on your body. You are literally dripping. To keep the rhythm, the gang breaks into a chant. It's a call and response song, simple and hypnotic. It helps synchronize the pulling. If one guy pulls out of sync, the momentum is lost, or worse, someone gets dragged. You find yourself mumbling along, the rhythm becoming a lifeline. It's the only thing keeping your mind off the burning sensation in your shoulders. Ahead of the sledge, you see a person performing the most crucial job on the site. He is pouring water from a jar onto the sand directly in front of the runners. For a long time, historians looked at wall paintings of this action and assumed it was a ceremonial ritual, pouring a libation to the gods to bless the stone. It turns out, the Egyptians were just masters of physics. Wetting the sand reduces the friction by nearly half. It prevents the sand from piling up in front of the sledge, creating a smooth, firm track. That guy with the water jar isn't a priest. He's a human lubricant system. If he misses a spot, the friction spikes, the sledge stops dead, and 20 men face plant into the dirt. As you pull, you realize the organization here is surprisingly complex. You aren't just a random mob. You are part of a ZA, or a gang. The workforce is divided into sides, starboard and port, mirroring the organization of a ship's crew. This nautical terminology permeates everything, even out here in the desert. Your specific team might even have a name. Archaeologists have found graffiti on the casing stones of the pyramids with names of work gangs like the Drunkards of Menkaure or the Friends of Khufu. It seems that even while breaking their backs for the God King, ancient workers had a sense of humor and team spirit. You wonder what your team is called. The sunburnt tourists seems appropriate right now. But let's address the elephant in the room, or rather, the slave in the room. You are probably wondering, am I a slave? This is one of the biggest misconceptions about ancient Egypt. For centuries, thanks to Herodotus and Hollywood movies, we believed the pyramids were built by armies of enslaved people driven by whips. Historians and archaeologists now largely agree that this wasn't the case. The people building these monuments were native Egyptians, citizens performing their national service. They were paid in rations of bread, beer, and meat. They were housed in the worker villages. They were given medical care. However, not a slave doesn't mean free. You can't just quit. If you try to run away from the corvée, you are a fugitive. If caught, the punishment is severe: beatings, mutilation, or exile to the mines in Nubia, which is effectively a death sentence. So, while you technically aren't property, the distinction feels fairly academic when your hands are bleeding and your back is in spasms. You are a conscript of the state, a cog in the machine of Ma'at, cosmic order. The heat is the real enemy. It's relentless. By mid-morning, it's over 100 degrees Fahrenheit at 38 degrees. You are losing water faster than you can replace it. You feel dizzy. The horizon starts to shimmer. Heat exhaustion is a very real threat. The overseers know this, and water carriers circulate constantly. When a carrier approaches, you don't sip politely. You gulp. The water is warm, but it feels like life itself. You look around at your fellow workers. Some are young, barely out of their teens. Others are grizzled veterans with thick calluses and stooped shoulders. Their bodies tell the story of their lives. Skeletal analysis of workers from the Giza Plateau shows terrible wear and tear on the spine and joints. Arthritis was rampant. Fractures were common. If a 2-ton block shifts unexpectedly, it crushes bone. There is no OSHA here. There are no steel-toed boots. If you drop a stone, you lose a foot. And if you are injured and can't work, well, let's just say the disability benefits package is limited to, hopefully, your family can support you. After what feels like an eternity, the overseer signals a halt. The block has reached its destination for the morning. You drop the rope. Your hands are locked in a claw shape, cramping painfully. You try to straighten your fingers and wince. Your shoulders feel like they are on fire. You sink to the ground in the shadow of the stone you just moved, gasping for air. But the break is short. The scribe is already there, tallying the work. He's making marks on a papyrus scroll or a limestone flake called an ostrakhan. He is recording the progress, the rations dispensed, and the attendance. Worker Imhotep, present. Worker Keti, present. Worker U, present, but looking wobbly. This bureaucracy is the nervous system of the empire. Nothing moves without being written down. And that brings you to your next hurdle. You might have survived the physical labor for now, but you are about to encounter something even more terrifying than heavy lifting. The administration. Because in ancient Egypt, if it isn't written down, it didn't happen. And if the tax collector decides you owe more than you have, you are in a world of trouble that no amount of lifting can solve. You are sitting in the sliver of shade cast by the limestone block, nursing your cramping hands, when a shadow falls across your face. It's not a cloud. There are no clouds. It's a man. He is clean-shaven. His linen kilt is crisp and white, suspiciously white, and he is holding a palette of reed brushes and a roll of papyrus. He looks at you with the bored, slightly disdainful expression of a DMV employee who has just realized you filled out the wrong form. This is the scribe. In the hierarchy of ancient Egypt, you are the muscle and he is the brain. The gulf between you is vast. The Satire of the Trades, a famous ancient text, explicitly mocks every profession, the barber, the potter, the mason, painting them as miserable and dirty, while exalting the scribe as the only man who is his own boss. Be a scribe, the text urges, for he is the one who gives orders, and right now, he is about to order you around. He demands your name. You mutter it. He dips his rush pen into a cake of black ink, made from soot and gum arabic, and scratches something onto a jagged shard of limestone called an ostrakhan. Paper, papyrus, is expensive, so for daily notes, receipts, and angry memos, Egyptians use broken pottery or stone flakes. It's the post-it note of the ancient world. You are witnessing the machinery of the world's first true surveillance state. We tend to think of bureaucracy as a modern invention, but the Egyptians perfected it. Every bushel of grain harvested, every jar of beer brewed, every goat born, and every day of sick leave taken is recorded. The state knows what you earn, what you eat, and what you owe. And what you owe is the problem. It's tax season, but you don't pay in currency. Coins won't be invented for another 1,000 years or so. You pay in kind. The scribe is here to verify your output and calculate your harvest tax or your labor debt. If you are a farmer, officials come to your field with a measuring rope. They assess the size of your land and the height of the Nile flood, then calculate exactly how much grain you should have produced. Here is the terrifying part. It's a projection. If a swarm of locusts ate your crop or a hippo trampled it, the scribe's ledger doesn't care. The math says you owe X amount. If you can't pay X, you are in default. You watch him tallying. He is using a complex system of hieratic script, a cursive shorthand version of hieroglyphs. He calculates quickly. The Egyptians were mathematical whizzes, comfortable with geometry and fractions, which they needed to measure fields and calculate pyramid slopes. But right now, his math is bad news for you. He informs you that your rations are being docked. Why? Maybe you were late. Maybe the overseer claimed you were slacking. Maybe the state just needs to tighten its belt. You try to argue, but I pulled the block, you protest. My shoulder is dislocated. The scribe doesn't look up. He just points to the ostracon. It's written down. Therefore, it is truth. The written word, Medu Necher, words of the gods, has a magical, binding quality. Once recorded, reality is set. You can't argue with the stone. This bureaucratic rigidity leads to one of the most surprising events in history, the first recorded labor strike. In the 12th century BCE, under Ramses III, the workers at Deir el-Medina, the guys building the royal tombs, stopped getting their pay. Their grain rations were delayed again and again by corrupt administrators. So, they did the unthinkable. They put down their tools. They marched to the mortuary temples and staged a sit-in, chanting, "We are hungry." It worked. The scribes panicked. The vizier was called, and eventually they got their grain. It's a comforting thought. Even in an absolute monarchy where the king is a god, angry workers can sometimes win. But today, you are not striking. You are submitting. The scribe finishes his tally, gives you a dismissive wave, and moves to the next victim. You are left with a smaller ration ticket, another clay token, and a lingering sense of injustice. But wait, it gets worse. If you really fall behind on your taxes, the scribes don't just garnish your wages, they bring in the beatings men. Tax collection often involved corporal punishment. There are tomb paintings showing farmers being held down and beaten with sticks because they couldn't produce the grain quotas. It was a brutal system of extraction. The surplus grain went to the state granaries to feed the army, the priests, and the workers like you, but the pressure to produce was immense. As the scribe walks away, you notice something hanging from his belt, a cylinder seal. This is his signature, his ID badge. He rolls it over wet clay to seal documents and jars. That little rolling design is the authority of the pharaoh in miniature. It locks doors, seals deals, and condemns men. You feel a headache coming on. It's the stress, the heat, and the dehydration. But it's also something else. A throb behind your eyes. You feel a wave of nausea. In the modern world, you'd pop an ibuprofen and drink a Gatorade. Here, you have entered the danger zone. Illness in ancient Egypt is not just biology, it's a spiritual attack. If you collapse now, you won't be taken to a hospital. You'll be taken to a lay priest who might just try to cure your heat stroke with a spell and a handful of something disgusting. The administration has taken your grain. Now nature is coming for your health. You're about to discover that Egyptian medicine is a fascinating, horrifying mix of genuine science and absolute gross-out magic. And your prescription, it probably involves dung. The headache that started as a dull throb behind your eyes has graduated into a full-blown rhythmic pounding, like a tiny quarry worker is chiseling away at the inside of your skull. You stumble away from the scribe, the world tilting alarmingly to the left. You manage to find a patch of shade near a mud brick wall and slide down it, your back scraping against the rough plaster. You are overheated, dehydrated, and stressed. In the modern world, this would be the moment you call in sick and crawl into bed with an ice pack. Here, you are about to experience the wonders of the Egyptian healthcare system. A fellow worker notices your distress. He isn't a licensed MD with a stethoscope. He is a Asonablu, pronounced Su-Nu, a lay physician, or perhaps just a guy who knows a few spells. He squats down beside you, his face close to yours. He doesn't ask you about your symptoms or check your blood pressure. Instead, he looks you dead in the eye and asks, "Who is angry with you?" This is the fundamental difference between your worldview and his. To you, you have heat stroke. To him, you have a spiritual breach. Sickness in ancient Egypt is rarely just biological. It is often the result of a demon, an angry ghost, an AA, or a god who feels neglected. Maybe you forgot to pour a libation for your deceased grandfather this morning, and now he's squeezing your head in retaliation. Or perhaps a weld, a malicious spirit, has entered your body through your nose or ears. Your new friend decides that you have been afflicted by a demon of the head. He reaches into a small leather pouch at his belt. You hope for an aspirin. Instead, he pulls out a small, dried, unrecognizable lump and a piece of papyrus with a spell written on it. He begins to chant, a low, rhythmic muttering designed to drive the chaos out of your body. "Flow out, fetid poison. Flow out to the ground," he murmurs, waving his hands over your forehead. It's a nice sentiment, but your head is still splitting. Now comes the prescription. He opens a small jar. The smell hits you before you even see the contents. It's pungent, earthy, and unmistakably fecal. Ancient Egyptian pharmacology is a wild ride. While they were brilliant at setting bones and stitching wounds, their internal medicine was often creative. The Eber's Papyrus, one of the oldest medical texts in existence, lists over 700 remedies. Some are quite sensible, using honey, an antibiotic, willow bark, natural aspirin, or mint. Others, however, require a strong stomach. Your doctor dips his finger into the jar. "This will drive out the heat," he assures you. You squint at the paste. It is likely a mixture of dough, honey, and, wait for it, fly dung, or perhaps, if you're really unlucky, gazelle droppings. The Egyptians believed that the repulsive nature of the dung would disgust the demon so much that it would flee your body. Essentially, the strategy is to make your internal environment so gross that even an evil spirit says, "Okay, I'm out." You recoil, pressing your head back against the wall. Is there a pill option? You want to ask, but your throat is too dry. He smears the paste on your forehead. It's cool, which feels nice for about 3 seconds, until the smell wafts down into your nostrils. You gag. Don't wipe it off, he warns, or the demon will return with 7 brothers. You sit there, marinating in the scent of the barnyard, trying to breathe through your mouth. It's a lot to process, but to be fair to the ancients, they weren't entirely clueless. They had a surprisingly advanced understanding of anatomy, mostly thanks to the mummification process. They knew about the pulse and its connection to the heart. However, historians still argue whether they understood the brain's function at all. The prevailing theory is that they were cardiocentric, believing the heart was the seat of intelligence and emotion, while the brain was just a marrow-producing radiator to cool the blood. This is why, during mummification, they carefully preserved the heart, but scrambled the brain with a hook and flushed it out the nose like so much waste. Looking at the guy smearing dung on your face, you start to feel like maybe his radiator is leaking. As you wait for the medicine to work, he hands you an amulet. It's a small faience charm shaped like a blue eye, the Wedjut, or Eye of Horus. This is the ultimate protective gear. The myth goes that Horus lost his eye in a battle with Seth, but it was restored by Thoth, making it a symbol of wholeness and healing. You clutch it tightly. In a world without antibiotics, you'll take all the magic tokens you can get. If your headache were a toothache, the remedy might be even stranger. There are records of Egyptians taking a mouse, splitting it in half while it was still warm, and applying the body to the aching gum. The idea was to transfer the pain to the mouse. You suddenly feel very grateful that it's just heat stroke. Despite the questionable ingredients, you do start to feel a little better. Maybe it's the rest in the shade. Maybe it's the water he forces you to drink. Or maybe it's the placebo effect, a phenomenon the Egyptians accidentally mastered. Because they believed so fervently in the power of the spell and the foulness of the cure, their bodies often rallied to heal themselves. The theater of medicine, the chanting, the amulets, the dramatic application of paste was part of the cure. Your physician gives you a final checkup. He presses his fingers to your neck, feeling the mitu vessels. The Egyptians believed these vessels carried everything: blood, air, urine, mucus, and disease spirits throughout the body, all originating from the heart. If your mitu were blocked or stiff, you got sick. His diagnosis? Your vessels are flowing again. The demon has fled. You nod weakly. You aren't going to argue. You just want the dung off your forehead. Can I wash this off? You ask. Not until the sun hits the zenith, he says sternly. Now eat. You need strength. He points you toward the rest of your crew, who are gathering for the midday meal. You shakily get to your feet. You are still woozy, and you smell terrible, but you are upright. You have survived your first brush with the Egyptian medical establishment. You didn't get trepanned, a hole drilled in your skull to let the spirits out, and you didn't have to eat the mouse. Count your blessings. As you walk back to the group, you touch the Eye of Horus amulet hanging around your neck. It feels smooth and cool. It's a reminder that here, survival is a partnership between the physical and the supernatural. You can't just rely on your body, you need the gods on your side. And apparently, the gods appreciate a little bit of fly dung now and then. Your stomach rumbles, overriding the nausea. It's time for the midday break. The sun is directly overhead now, erasing all shadows except the one pooling around your feet. The heat is at its absolute peak. Work has paused. It's time to see what passes for lunch in the middle of a desert construction site, and to learn that even while eating, you are navigating a minefield of social etiquette. You stumble towards the small cluster of acacia trees and palm leaf shelters where the work gang has retreated. The sun is now a white-hot disk directly overhead. In the ancient world, noon is not just a time, it is a hostile environment. The concept of mad dogs and Englishmen going out in the midday sun hasn't been invented yet, but the sentiment applies. Sensible people and animals hide. You collapse onto a woven mat. The shade is a relief, but it's a relative term. It's still over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees, but at least the direct radiation isn't cooking your skin anymore. You are handed your lunch ration. It looks suspiciously like your breakfast ration, more gritty bread, perhaps a handful of dates and another jar of weak beer. If you were hoping for a sandwich or a salad, you are out of luck. The Egyptian world runs on a carb-loading diet that would make a keto enthusiast faint. But before you bite into your bread, you notice a subtle shifting in the group dynamic. You might think that out here, sweating in the dirt, everyone is equal. You would be wrong. Even in the dust, hierarchy is everything. The Egyptians are assessed with order, Mayat, and that order extends to where you sit and who you speak to. You see the foreman, or great one of the crew, sitting slightly apart. He has a better mat. He has a servant, or perhaps a younger apprentice, fanning him with a palm frond. He is eating a piece of dried meat, likely goose or duck. You, the lowly stone dragger, do not get goose. You get the view of him eating goose. You sit with your designated subgroup. You notice that the skilled craftsmen, the draftsmen who draw the outlines on the walls, and the chisel men who carve the reliefs, sit separately from the brute force laborers like you. They have cleaner hands and slightly softer kilts. They look at you with the mild pity of white-collar workers watching the movers haul a piano. This social stratification is rigid. You don't just walk up and chat with the foreman. You speak when spoken to. If you need something, you go through the proper chain of command. You tell your sub-leader, who tells the scribe, who tells the foreman. It's a bureaucracy of whispers. As you chew your dates, which are deliciously sweet and sticky, a burst of sugar energy, you observe the interactions around you. The conversation is surprisingly relatable. They aren't discussing the mysteries of the cosmos or the glory of the pharaoh. They are complaining. The beer is sour today. My wife is nagging me about the roof leaking. I heard the vizier is coming to inspect next week, so we have to look busy. We know this because we have found their trash. In the worker village of Deir el Medina, archaeologists found thousands of limestone flakes with messages written on them. They are essentially ancient text messages. They complain about bosses, gossip about affairs, and make jokes about their mothers-in-law. One famous text even lists excuses for missing work: brewing beer, building my house, bleeding from the nose, and the oddly specific bitten by a scorpion. You lean back against a tree trunk, closing your eyes for a moment. The heat makes you drowsy. This is the siesta, a necessary survival mechanism. For the next 2 hours, the site will be silent. The only sound is the drone of cicadas and the occasional snap of a drying branch. But even in this relaxation, you have to be careful. You are sitting on the ground. The ground is not empty. You glance down and see a small track in the sand near your foot. It looks like a winding S shape, a snake, specifically the horned viper. It buries itself in the sand with just its eyes and horns poking out, waiting for a careless foot. It's the landmine of the desert. You pull your feet in closer to your body. You are never truly safe here. The environment is always testing you. You take a long pull of your beer. It's warm now, but the alcohol and the calories settle your nerves. You watch a group of younger workers playing a game nearby, tossing pebbles into a hole. They are laughing, momentarily forgetting the crushing weight of the stone box waiting for them. It's a human moment. Despite the harshness, the lice, the hierarchy, and the snakes, there is a camaraderie here. You are all in this oven together. A debate breaks out near the water jar. 2 men are arguing about the nature of the pharaoh. He is the living Horus, one insists. He is a man who bleeds like us, the other whispers, looking around nervously. Historians still argue about how the common people viewed their god king. Was it absolute, terrifying reverence? Or was there a cynical understanding that the guy in the palace was just a guy? The fact that tomb robberies occurred, often done by the very workers who built the tombs, suggests that for many, the god status didn't outweigh the value of the gold in his coffin. The foreman claps his hands. The sound cuts through the heavy air like a whip crack. Lunch is over. The siesta is done. The sun has moved just enough to signal the start of the afternoon shift. You groan. Your muscles have seized up during the break. Getting back to your feet feels harder than it did this morning. You finish the last gritty crumb of bread and stand up. You brush the sand off your kilt, though it immediately resettles. You have refueled. You have rested. But now, the hardest part of the day begins. The afternoon slog, when the heat is a physical weight and the end of the shift feels impossibly far away. You head back to the ropes, back to the sledge, back to the grind. But at least you know that at the end of this long, dusty road, there is a home waiting for you. It's small, it's dark, and it's crowded, but it's yours. Unfortunately, when you finally clock out and drag yourself back to the village, you're going to find that your home has some occupants that you definitely didn't invite. The sun has finally lost its edge. It dips toward the western horizon, painting the sky in bruising shades of violet and burnt orange. The foreman shouts the final dismissal. The tools, copper chisels, wooden mallets, measuring cords, are collected and counted with paranoid precision. Copper is valuable, and if you lose a chisel, you're paying for it with months of labor. Once the audit is complete, You are free. You turn your back on the Pharaoh's great work and begin the long trudge back to the village. You are exhausted in a way that modern humans rarely experience. It's a bone-deep, cellular fatigue. Your feet are throbbing in your reed sandals, your shoulders are knotted, and you are caked in a layer of sweat paste that has dried into a second skin. But you are going home. You crave the sanctuary of your own four walls. You arrive at the workers' village. It is a dense honeycomb of humanity. The streets are narrow, barely wide enough for two donkeys to pass each other. You duck through the low doorway of your house. House might be a generous term. Row home is more accurate. These dwellings are long, narrow strips sharing walls with neighbors on both sides. You walk into the front room. The first thing that hits you is the heat. You might expect the thick mud brick walls to keep the interior cool, and they do early in the day. But mud brick is a thermal battery. It absorbs the sun's radiation for 12 solid hours, and now, as the outside air cools, the walls release that stored heat back into the room. Stepping inside is like stepping into a slow cooker that has been on low all day. The air is stagnant and heavy. The second thing you notice is the darkness. Windows are small, high slits designed to keep out the glare and the dust. As the sun sets, your home becomes a cave. You fumble for a lamp. It's a simple clay bowl filled with castor oil or sesame oil with a twisted linen wick floating in it. You light it. It sputters to life, casting a weak, flickering yellow light. It also immediately starts producing a thin tendril of black, oily smoke. This smoke will coat your lungs and your ceiling over the years. Egyptian lungs examined from mummies often show signs of anthracosis, black lung disease, not from coal mining, but from inhaling lamp smoke and cooking fires in unventilated rooms. As the light pushes back the shadows, you realize you are not alone. You have roommates, unwanted, uninvited, and very persistent roommates. First, the flies. They are everywhere. During the day, they are a nuisance. In the confined space of the house, they are a plague. They land on your sweaty skin, your eyes, your lips. They are attracted to moisture, and you are a walking water source. You reach for a fly whisk, likely a horse's tail or a bundle of palm fibers attached to a wooden handle. This is the most essential piece of furniture you own. You wave it lazily. The flies scatter for a second and then return. It is a war of attrition you will never win. Then there are the scuttlers. You see a dark shape dart across the floor. A cockroach? Maybe. A beetle? Definitely. But the one you really need to watch out for is the scorpion. They love the cool crevices of mud brick walls. You learn to shake out your sandals every morning and check your sleeping mat every night. A sting from a fat black scorpion probably won't kill a healthy adult, but it will make you wish you were dead for about 24 hours. But not all the roommates are bad. You look up at the ceiling where the wooden beams are blackened by soot, and you see a small, pale lizard clinging to the plaster upside down. The house gecko. He is your best friend. He is the only thing standing between you and total insect domination. The ancient Egyptians called the lizard Asha, which means many or plentiful, perhaps because they breed like crazy. You don't shoo him away. In fact, you might whisper a little thank you as you watch him snap up a moth. You move deeper into the house. The layout is standard: a reception room in the front, a main living room with a raised ceiling supported by a wooden column, and a kitchen area at the back, which is open to the sky to let smoke escape. In the main room, you see a peculiar structure that has puzzled archaeologists for decades. It is a box-like construction, a raised platform enclosed by low walls, often decorated with images of the god Bes, the dwarf god of households, or Taweret, the hippo goddess of childbirth. Historians still argue vehemently about what this lit close, enclosed bed was actually for. Was it an altar for domestic worship? A birthing bed where women labored in privacy? A safe sleeping crate for toddlers to keep them away from scorpions? Or was it just the master bedroom? Standing here, looking at the cramped space, you suspect it's a bit of everything, a multi-purpose zone for sleeping, praying, and intimacy, all happening within earshot of the neighbors. And speaking of neighbors, the walls are thin. You can hear everything. To your left, the neighbor is arguing with his wife about the price of lentils. To your right, a baby is crying. Privacy is a modern illusion. Here, you live in a collective organism. If you burn your dinner, the whole street smells it. If you have a fight, the whole street knows who won. You head to the back of the house, to the kitchen area. Your wife, or sister, or mother is there, tending a small fire. She hands you a cloth to wipe your face. The water in the jar is tepid, but it feels divine washing away the quarry dust. You scrub at your skin, trying to dislodge the grit. The house is cluttered. There are no closets. Baskets hang from the ceiling to keep food away from mice. Jars of grain, oil, and beer are stacked against the walls. A wooden chest holds your few linens and perhaps a spare wig. It feels lived in, chaotic, and decidedly human. It smells of stale beer, wood smoke, sweat, and the faint, sweet scent of incense burned to ward off demons, and the smell of the latrine. Wait, the latrine? You probably don't have one inside. Most workers walked to a communal dump outside the village walls. However, some houses in Deir el Medina had toilet seats, limestone blocks with a keyhole shape cut into them, placed over a vessel filled with sand. It's essentially a giant cat litter box. It had to be emptied by hand. You decide you can hold it. You sit down on a low, three-legged stool. It's hard and unforgiving, but it takes the weight off your feet. The lamp flickers, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The painted images on the plaster, maybe a scene of the family worshiping a god, or a simple geometric border, seem to move in the dim light. You feel a tickle on your ankle. You look down. A flea. You crush it with your thumb. This is just life. The scratching, the swatting, the constant low-level vigilance against nature, trying to reclaim your home. You are the master of this domain, technically, but you are sharing the lease with 1,000 tiny tenants who don't pay rent. But despite the heat, the bugs, and the noise, there is a sense of safety here. The thick walls keep out the desert wind, and the hyenas. You are enclosed. You are civilized. You take a deep breath of the smoky air. You have survived the sun You have survived the foreman. Now you just have to survive the night. But before you can fully relax, a thought intrudes. You remember a rumor you heard on the worksite today. Someone stole a copper chisel. And when a crime happens in the village, the law doesn't just look for evidence, it looks for order. And the way they restore order is swift, brutal, and often involves a river ordeal. You might be safe from the sun, but you are never safe from Ma'at. The rumor about the stolen copper chisel isn't just gossip, it's a tremor in the bedrock of your community. In the modern world, theft is a property crime. You call the police, file a report, and hope insurance covers it. In ancient Egypt, theft is an assault on Ma'at. Ma'at is a concept that is difficult to translate. It means truth, balance, order, justice, and cosmic harmony, all wrapped into one. It is the force that keeps the stars moving and the Nile flooding. The pharaoh's primary job description isn't ruler, it is maintainer of Ma'at. When someone steals, whether it's a loaf of bread or a sacred vessel, they aren't just breaking a law, they are introducing Isfet, chaos, into the universe, and chaos must be crushed. You are sitting in your front room when you hear the commotion outside. The Medjay, the Nubian desert police force, are moving through the alleyway. These guys are the ancient equivalent of a SWAT team, but instead of tactical vests, they wear leather sashes and carry heavy wooden staves. They are tough, skilled trackers, and terrifyingly effective. They aren't just looking for the chisel, they are looking for the disruption. The justice system here is swift. There are no lawyers, no lengthy appeals processes, and definitely no innocent until proven guilty. The local court, the Kenbet, is comprised of village elders and scribes. They gather in the open air, perhaps near the village gate. If you are accused, you stand before them. Let's say you are the suspect. The evidence against you is circumstantial. Maybe you were seen near the storeroom. The judges don't need DNA evidence. They need a confession. And the method for extracting that confession is direct. It's simply called the stick. Beating the soles of the feet, bastinado, or the back is standard investigative procedure. The logic is simple. A guilty man will confess to stop the pain. An innocent man will endure it because Ma'at protects him, or so the theory goes. If you've ever wondered why so many ancient records end with, and then the thief confessed, now you know. But for really serious crimes, like robbing a tomb or treason, the punishments escalate into the realm of horror. There is the cutting off of the nose and ears. This was a common sentence for women caught in adultery or state workers who betrayed their trust. It wasn't just physical pain, it was permanent social branding. Without a nose, you are marked forever as an agent of chaos. You can never hide your shame. Then there is the death penalty. But Egyptians, being practical, didn't want to waste good labor. Capital punishment was reserved for the worst offenses. Impalement was a favorite for rebels, a slow, agonizing death where a stake is driven through the body and the victim is left to bake in the sun. Or, if you were lucky, you might just be fed to the crocodiles. This wasn't just execution, it was total annihilation. To be eaten by a crocodile meant your body was destroyed, which meant your ka, spirit, had no home to return to. You were denied the afterlife. You ceased to exist. However, the most fascinating legal tool is the oracle. Sometimes the judges can't decide. The evidence is murky. So they turn to the ultimate authority, the statue of the god. On festival days, the priests carry the bark, a portable boat shrine, containing the god's image through the streets. The litigants stand before it. O Amun-Ra, the priest intones, is this man guilty? The heavy wooden bark, carried on the shoulders of 20 sweating priests, would then move. If the front dipped forward, it was a yes. If it recoiled backward, it was a no. Historians still argue about the mechanics of this. Was it the subconscious movement of the priests, the ideomotor effect, or was it blatant manipulation with the high priest whispering, "Dip left, guys," to get the result he wanted? Regardless of the how, the result was binding. A wooden statue could sentence you to a beating or clear your name. You realize that your entire fate rests on whether 20 tired guys stumble forward or backwards. Tonight, the commotion outside settles. Someone has confessed. Order is restored. Ma'at is balanced. But the incident leaves a chill in the air that has nothing to do with the dropping temperature. You are reminded that you live in a society where order is more important than the individual. You finish your evening meal, some leftovers from lunch, and the heaviness of the day returns. The adrenaline of the police raid fades, leaving you with the aches and pains of the labor. You rub your shoulder. It's stiff. But as you prepare for bed, you aren't just worried about the police. The night brings out forces far scarier than the Medjay. The sun has set, which means Ra has traveled into the Duat, the underworld, to battle the serpent Apophis. The world of the living is now thin. The barrier between you and the spirits is permeable. You look at the amulet around your neck again. You look at the headrest that serves as your pillow. You are about to enter the realm of sleep. But in ancient Egypt, sleep is not just rest. It is a dress rehearsal for death. And just like death, it requires a map, a spell, and a lot of protection to navigate safely. The lamp in the corner of your room sputters, the flame dipping low before flaring up again. In a modern apartment, you would blame a draft or a cheap wick. Here, your heart hammers against your ribs because you know what that flicker really means. Something invisible just walked through the room. You have entered the headspace of the ancient Egyptian night. While the sun was up, you lived in the world of men, governed by the foreman, the scribe, and the whip. But now that the sun, Ra, has descended into the underworld to fight his nightly battle, the rules of physics have been suspended. You are now walking among the gods, the demons, and the dead. You look around your cramped dwelling. To your modern eyes, it's just a room with mud walls. To your ancient eyes, it is a battlefield of symbols. There is no such thing as coincidence here. The concept of randomness doesn't exist. Everything is an omen. Everything is a message. You reach for a cup of water and your hand slips, spilling a few drops on the floor. You freeze. This isn't just a mess to clean up. It is a portent. Which way did the water flow? Did it soak in quickly or pool? You run through a mental catalog of superstitions. Spilling water might mean a flood is coming, or it might mean your ka is thirsty. You quickly mutter a counterspell just in case. You might spit on the spill. Spitting is a powerful act of purification and protection to neutralize the negative energy. This constant vigilance is exhausting. You are living in a world where the universe is constantly trying to talk to you, usually to warn you about something terrible. If you see a black dog on your way to work, it's a sign. If a bird flies from left to right, it's a sign. If your left eyelid twitches, it's definitely a sign, probably that you're going to see something unpleasant. But you aren't defenseless. You have Heka. We translate this as magic, but that word is too small. Heka isn't a parlor trick or a supernatural violation of nature. It is nature. It's the primeval force that the Creator God used to knit the world together. Using magic is like using electricity. It's a neutral power source available to anyone who knows the codes. You look at the wall near your sleeping platform. Painted there in bright, garish colors is your primary security system. It's not a burglar alarm. It's a picture of Bess. Bess is intense. He is a dwarf god with bowed legs, a lion's mane, and a face that looks like he's screaming. He is often depicted sticking his tongue out. To a modern eye, he looks comical, maybe even grotesque, but that's the point. Bess is the bouncer of the spirit world. He is ugly specifically to scare away demons. He is the protector of the household, of mothers and children. You have a small wooden amulet of him that you wear, rubbed smooth by years of anxious thumbing. When you hear a creak in the roof beams, you don't grab a knife. You look at Bess. You trust him to headbutt the nightmare before it reaches you. Next to him is often Taweret, the goddess of childbirth and fertility. She is a terrifying hybrid, the head of a hippo, the arms of a lion, the tail of a crocodile, and the swollen belly of a pregnant woman. It sounds like a monster mashup, but she is fierce. You want her on your side. These are not the distant, golden gods of the great temples like Amun or Ptah. These are the household gods, the gritty, working-class deities who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty, protecting your sleep. But it's not just gods you have to worry about. It's the neighbors, specifically the dead ones. The Egyptians had a complex view of the soul. There was the Ka, life force, the Ba, personality, depicted as a bird with your head, and the Ak. The Ak is the transfigured spirit, the ghost. And sometimes, the Ak of a relative holds a grudge. Let's say you've been having a run of bad luck. You lost your chisel, your back hurts, and your donkey died. The diagnosis is clear. A dead relative is angry with you. Maybe you didn't bring enough bread to their tomb. Maybe you sold their favorite chair. So, what do? You sue them. You sit down and write a letter to the dead. This is one of the most uniquely quirky aspects of Egyptian life. You grab a bowl or a jar stand and write a furious message on it in ink. To the spirit of my uncle Ankh-Mose, you might scrawl, "What have I done to you? I buried you well. I gave you beer. Why are you making my life miserable? Stop it, or I will stop bringing you offerings, and you will starve forever." You then take this bowl to the tomb and leave it there. It's a cease and desist order for a ghost. Historians still argue about the exact mechanism of these letters. Were they read aloud by priests to ensure the ghost heard them, or was the act of writing considered magically binding? Some scholars even suggest these letters were a form of therapy, a way for the grieving to process their anger at the deceased for leaving them behind. Regardless of the intent, it shows a relationship with death that is surprisingly bureaucratic. You don't just fear ghosts, you negotiate with them. As the night deepens, you think about the most dangerous journey of all, dreaming. In the modern world, a dream is just your brain filing memories. Here, a dream is a literal journey. Your base soul leaves your body and travels into a twilight zone where it can meet gods or the dead. This is risky. If your ba gets lost or trapped, you might never wake up. Because dreams are messages, you need a way to decode them. Enter the Dream Book. These were papyrus scrolls listing common dream symbols and their meanings. They are the ancestors of every "what does my dream mean" Google search you've ever done. But the logic is specific. If a man sees himself in a dream looking into a deep well, bad. It means he will be put in prison. If a man sees himself uncovering his own backside, bad. It means he will be an orphan. If a man sees himself drinking warm beer, bad. It means suffering is coming. But there are good ones too. If a man sees himself eating donkey meat, good. It means he will become great. A rare win for donkey meat enthusiasts. You run through your dreams from the night before, trying to remember if you saw a large cat or a small cat, because the difference could be life or death. The anxiety is low level but constant. You are navigating a minefield of symbols. You feel a sudden draft. The flame flickers again. You instinctively make a protective gesture, clasping your hand into a fist with the thumb protruding between the first and second fingers. It's a gesture that has survived for thousands of years in various cultures, often as an insult, but here it's a ward against the evil eye. The darkness presses in against the small circle of lamplight. You feel very small. The desert outside is vast, filled with howling jackals, Anubis, and hooting owls, a symbol of death. The walls of your house feel flimsy against the weight of the supernatural night. You need a distraction. You need to pull your mind away from the shadows and the angry ghosts. You look over at a small wooden box sitting on the floor. It's a game board, specifically Senate. Senate means passing. It's a board game, yes, similar to backgammon or Ludo. But like everything else in Egypt, it has been hijacked by theology. It started as pastime, but over the centuries, it evolved into a simulation of the afterlife. The squares on the board represent the hazards of the journey to the underworld. Winning the game isn't just about beating your opponent. It's about symbolically proving you can survive death. You pull the board closer. The pieces are conical and spool-shaped. You pick up the dice, which are actually 4 throw sticks, flat on one side and round on the other. You rattle them in your hand. The clatter of the wood is a grounding sound. You are going to play a game against the darkness. It's a way to unwind, yes, but it's also a way to practice for the final exam. You slide the Senate board into the circle of lamplight. It's a simple wooden box with a grid of 30 squares carved into the top, 3 rows of 10. The wood is worn smooth by countless games, the edges rounded by the touch of sweating hands. You sit opposite a family member, perhaps your brother or your wife, who is already rattling the throw sticks in their palm. Ciné is the national obsession. From the pharaoh in his palace to the worker in the quarry, everyone plays. It is the great equalizer. You might not have gold, but if you can roll a 5 at the right moment, you can feel like a king. You pick up your own set of throw sticks. There are no cubic dice here. Instead, you toss 4 flat sticks. If one lands flat side up, that's a 1. 2 flat sides is a 2, and so on. If all 4 land round side up, that's a 5, the best roll. It's a system of probability that feels satisfyingly tactile. You throw. Clack clatter. 3 flat sides up. A3. You move your piece, a small conical pawn made of clay, 3 squares forward. The path is serpentine, winding back and forth across the board in a reversed S shape. Your goal is to get all your pieces off the board before your opponent does. It sounds simple, like sorry or parcheesi, but the board is booby-trapped. As you play, the tension in the room shifts from existential dread to competitive focus. You take a sip of your evening beer. It's the same thick, sour brew you had this morning, but in the relaxed atmosphere of the home, it tastes better. It dulls the ache in your back. The alcohol buzz is a gentle buffer against the reality of tomorrow's labor. Your opponent rolls a 5 and gleefully knocks one of your pieces back to the start. You groan. This is the House of Water, a specific square on the board marked with zigzag lines. It represents the chaotic waters of the Nile or a specific hazard in the underworld. Landing here is a disaster. You are essentially drowning. You have to roll a 4 to get out, or else your piece is removed from the game entirely. This is where the game gets heavy. Remember, Senet isn't just a game, it's a ritual. The board is a map of the Duat, the realm of the dead. The squares have names: the House of Rebirth, the House of Happiness, the House of Water. As you move your pieces, you are symbolically enacting the journey your soul will take after you die. Winning implies that you have the favor of the gods, that your ka is strong enough to survive the trials of the afterlife. Losing, well, let's just say it's a bad omen you try not to think about before bed. Historians still argue about the exact rules. We have the boards, the pieces, and the paintings of people playing, but no rule book has ever been found. We've reconstructed the gameplay based on logic and probability, but we might be playing it completely wrong. For all we know, the House of Water was actually a bonus square, and we've been punishing ourselves for centuries. But for you, tonight, the rules are clear. Stay out of the water. You play aggressively, blocking your opponent's path. The friendly rivalry is a necessary distraction. For 30 minutes, you aren't a stone dragger or a taxpayer. You are a strategist. You are a general commanding an army of clay cones. The game reaches its climax. You need a 2 to bear off your final piece. You shake the sticks. You whisper a quick prayer to Thoth, the god of games, and writing, and magic. He's a multitasker. You throw. Clack. 2 flat sides. Victory. You let out a sigh of relief that is disproportionate to the stakes of a board game. Your opponent scowls, but resets the pieces for another round. Best of 3. they mutter. But you shake your head. The lamp oil is running low, and oil is expensive. You can't burn it all night. The flame is already shrinking to a small blue bead on the blackened wick. The shadows in the corners of the room are stretching, reaching out like fingers. The game has served its purpose. It has bought you an hour of peace. You pack the pieces back into the drawer built into the side of the board. The click of the drawer sliding shut is a finality. The leisure time is over. The reality of the night is returning. You finish the dregs of your beer. The sediment at the bottom of the cup is thick and gritty, but you swallow it anyway. Waste not, want not. Now comes the transition to sleep. The family begins to settle down. Mats are unrolled on the floor or on the raised platforms. The air in the room is still stiflingly hot, humid, with the breath of sleeping people. You strip off your linen kilt. Sleeping naked is the norm in this heat. You extinguish the lamp. The darkness is absolute. For a moment, you are blind. Then, slowly, your eyes adjust to the faint moonlight filtering through the high window slits. The room is a landscape of gray shapes. You crawl onto your sleeping mat. It's a simple woven reed mat, perhaps with a layer of linen cloth over it if you're lucky. It offers zero cushioning. You are essentially sleeping on the floor. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is the pillow, or rather, the lack of one. In the modern world, a pillow is a soft, fluffy cloud that cradles your head. In ancient Egypt, a pillow is a torture device designed by someone who hates comfort. It is the headrest, and you are about to rest your neck on it. You reach out in the dark and find it. It's made of wood, or sometimes ivory or stone for the rich. It looks like a crescent moon mounted on a pedestal. It's hard, it's rigid, and it is arguably the most confusing object in the entire history of bedding. Why? Why would anyone choose to sleep with their head propped up on a block of wood? Historians have theories: airflow, bug protection, hairstyle preservation, but as you position it under the base of your skull, none of those theories make it feel any softer. You maneuver your body onto the mat, your knees cracking slightly, a reminder of the limestone blocks you hauled today. You lie back, and now comes the moment of truth. You lift your head and position the back of your neck onto the crescent-shaped curve of the wooden headrest. The contact is firm. There is no give. It is a piece of carved sycamore wood pressing directly against your vertebrae. In the modern world, this object, the wares, would be classified as an orthopedic correction device, or perhaps evidence in a trial. Here, it is the standard of comfort. You wiggle slightly, trying to find the sweet spot at the base of your skull where the pressure doesn't immediately cut off blood flow. You might be asking, why, in a civilization that could build the Great Pyramid and perform brain surgery, did no one invent a bag of feathers? The answer, like everything else in Egypt, is a triad of practicality, vanity, and magic. First, let's talk about the heat. Remember, it's still 85 degrees Fahrenheit, 29 degrees, in this room. If you buried your head in a soft, fluffy down pillow, you would wake up sweating, your neck damp and sticky. The headrest elevates your skull, allowing air to circulate all around your neck and head. It's the Bronze Age equivalent of the cool side of the pillow, except the whole thing is the cool side because it's a block of wood. Second, there is the bug factor. You are sleeping on the floor. The floor is the domain of the scorpion, the centipede, and the earwig. By elevating your head 6 inches off the ground, you are creating a vertical air gap between your orifices and the creepy crawlies. It's a defensive moat of air. You really, really don't want to wake up with a beetle exploring your ear canal, and this wooden stand is your best insurance against that specific nightmare. Third, and perhaps most relatable to the modern vanity, is the hair. Remember that lice-infested morning routine? If you are wealthy enough to wear a complex wig or have your natural hair braided in intricate resin-soaked plaits, you don't want to crush it. Egyptian hairstyles were architectural marvels that took hours to construct. You couldn't just wash and go. The headrest supports the neck, leaving the hair floating freely in the air, preserving your expensive blowout for tomorrow. But as you lie there, staring up at the dark ceiling, knowing the logic doesn't make your neck hurt less, it feels precarious. You can't toss and turn. If you roll to the side, the hard edge of the wood digs into your jaw or your ear. You have to sleep on your back or very carefully on your side, with the wood pressing into your temple. It forces you into a rigid, corpse-like posture. And that is entirely the point. This brings us to the magical function of the object. Look at the shape of the headrest again in your mind's eye. A curved top on a central column resting on a flat base. It looks like the hieroglyph Akhet, the horizon. The curve is the mountain valley, and your head, resting in the center, is the sun disk. By sleeping on this, you are ritually transforming yourself into Ra. Every night, the sun god sinks below the horizon into the underworld, travels through the dangers of the night, and is reborn in the morning. By mimicking this shape, you are casting a spell on yourself. You are saying to the universe, just as Ra rises safely tomorrow, so shall I. It is a machine for resurrection. Historians still argue about the actual comfort level of these things. Some experimental archaeologists who have tried sleeping on replicas claim that, surprisingly, it aligns the spine perfectly, relieving back pain much like a modern cervical pillow. They argue that once your neck muscles stop fighting it, it's actually quite restful. Others argue that these archaeologists are masochists. There is evidence that some people wrapped linen cloth around the wood to provide padding, but the wear patterns on many museum artifacts show the wood polished smooth by direct skin contact. You, tonight, are in the direct contact camp. You close your eyes. The room is not silent. The silence of the desert is a myth. The village is a living creature. You can hear the rhythmic breathing of your family members nearby. You hear the rustle of the palm thatch roof as a breeze, finally, ghosts through the village. You hear the distant, high-pitched yip of a jackal. It sounds like a crying child, but you know it's Anubis, the god of the dead, prowling the necropolis. You try to relax your jaw. You try to let your shoulders drop. The headrest forces your chin up, exposing your throat. It feels vulnerable. In a primal sense, You are exposing your jugular to the dark. This is why many headrests are carved with images of Bes or apotropaic, evil warding symbols. You are trusting the wood to watch your back, or rather, your neck, while your consciousness is away. As you drift toward the edge of sleep, your mind starts to unravel. The anxieties of the day, the heavy stones, the angry scribe, the spilled water, begin to blur. But a new anxiety takes their place. You are about to leave your body. The Egyptians believed that during sleep, the Ba, spirit, could detach and wander. It might visit the gods. It might visit the tomb of your ancestors. It might get lost. This is why waking someone up suddenly is considered dangerous. You might startle the Ba before it has a chance to zip back into the body, leaving the person in a zombie-like state. You feel a heavy drowsiness settling over you, distinct from the physical exhaustion. It's the thick beer of sleep. Your breathing slows. The hard wood against your neck stops feeling like an intrusion and starts feeling like an anchor. It grounds you. It tells you where your head is. You think about the tomb you are building. You think about the dark, cool tunnels of the underworld. In your drowsy state, the boundary between your mud brick house and the house of eternity feels very thin. You wonder if the pharaoh sleeps on a headrest of gold. Does gold feel softer than sycamore? Probably not. Even the God King has to deal with a stiff neck. A mosquito whines near your ear. You flinch, but you don't slap it. You are too tired. The sound fades. You are drifting now. The sensation of the mat against your back, the heat radiating from the walls, the smell of oil and dust, it all recedes. You are entering the duat. You are stepping onto the solar bark. You are no longer a worker with calloused hands and a ration debt. You are a soul on a journey. The darkness takes you. It is a deep, velvety black. It is the absence of the sun, but it is also the promise of its return. You have survived the day. You have paid your taxes in sweat. You have fed the machine of the empire, and now you have earned the right to shut your eyes and trust that the wooden horizon under your neck will carry you through to the dawn. But as the final curtain of sleep falls, you have one last fleeting thought. It's about the end. Not just the end of the day, but the end of everything. Because in this culture, life is just a temporary anomaly. The real existence, the permanent state, is what comes after. And as you slip into the unconscious, you realize that your entire life, the bread, the beer, the river, the stone, has just been a preparation for the final journey west. As your consciousness begins to blur, sliding off the edge of the waking world, your thoughts drift inevitably toward the horizon you are facing. You are lying with your head to the north, looking, in your mind's eye, toward the west. In our world, going west might mean a road trip to California or a metaphor for a business going bankrupt. Here, the West is everything. It is the destination. It is the land of the setting sun, the realm of Osiris, the beautiful West. To die in Egypt is simply to go west. You realize, with a drowsy sort of clarity, that your entire life, the grinding corn, the hauling of stone, the fighting of lice, has been a chaotic prelude to this singular goal. You are not living to work. You are working to ensure that you can die properly. The house you are sleeping in right now is made of mud brick. It will crumble in a generation. But the tomb you are helping to build, that is made of stone. That is the house of eternity. In your half-dream state, you picture the process that awaits you. It is the ultimate survival strategy. You know that to live forever, you need your hardware. Your spirit, needs a physical anchor to return to. If your body rots, you are evicted from existence. So, the Egyptians invented the most rigorous preservation technique in human history. You imagine yourself in the Wabet, the place of purification, the embalmer's workshop. It's not a sterile hospital room. It's a busy, smelly, industrial site, likely located out in the desert to keep the odors away from the living. You picture the embalmers, the priests of Anubis wearing jackal masks. They are the mechanics of immortality. You know the basics. The brain comes out, usually through the nose, broken down with a hook and flushed out. It's discarded. Who needs a radiator in the afterlife? The internal organs, the liver, lungs, stomach, and intestines, are removed through a slit in the side. These are the wet parts that cause decay. They are washed, packed in natron, a natural salt found in dry lake beds, and stored in 4 canopic jars, each guarded by a minor god. Then comes the drying. You are packed in a mountain of dry natron for 40 days. It essentially turns you into human jerky. It wicks every drop of moisture from your cells. When you emerge, you are shriveled, darkened, and rigid, but you are imperishable. You have become a statue of yourself. Historians and pathologists still argue about the nuances of this chemistry. Some fringe theories suggested that later dynasties used bitumen, black tar, which is where the word mummy comes from the Persian mum for wax or tar, but chemical analysis shows it was mostly complex resins, beeswax, and plant gums. It wasn't just drying, it was antibacterial shielding. They were sealing you against time. You think about the wrapping. Hundreds of yards of linen, amulets tucked into the layers, a heart scarab over your chest to stop your heart from betraying you during the judgment, a jejed pillar for stability. It's a cocoon, and then the opening of the mouth ceremony. A priest touches your mummy's mouth with a ritual adze tool. This is the reboot command. It magically reactivates your senses so you can eat, drink, and breathe in the afterlife. And what is that afterlife? This is the comforting part. You aren't hoping for a cloudy nirvana where you sit around playing a harp. That sounds boring. You want the Aru, the field of reeds. It's basically Egypt, but better. The crops grow taller. The Nile never runs dry. There are no hippos to capsize your boat. And, most importantly, no taxes. But there is a catch. The field of reeds still requires farming. The afterlife is an agrarian paradise, which implies labor. This leads to a fascinating scholarly debate. Was the afterlife truly a place of leisure, or was it just eternal work? The existence of Shabti dolls, little figurines buried with you holding hoes and baskets, suggests the latter. The spell written on them says, "If I am called upon to do work in the necropolis, you shall say, 'Here I am.'" You are literally being buried with a magical union workforce to take your shifts for you. You smile in the dark. It's a very Egyptian solution. You work hard in this life so you can buy magical servants to do the heavy lifting in the next. Finally, your mind drifts to the ultimate test, the Hall of Two Truths, the weighing of the heart. This is the moment where the order of the universe, Mad, judges you personally. You picture the great scale. On one side, your heart, containing all your deeds, your lies, your stolen chisels, and your kindnesses. On the other side, the feather of Ma'at. If your heart is heavy with sin, it sinks. Ammit, the devourer, part lion, part hippo, part crocodile, is waiting under the scale to eat it. Instant non-existence, the great death. But you have lived a good life. You worked hard. You fed your family. You honored the gods. Your heart is light. It balances. Osiris welcomes you. You board the sun boat. You have survived the day, and you have secured the eternity. The fear of the night dissolves. The hardness of the headrest fades. You are not just a tired worker in a mud hut. You are a future god in training. You are part of the cycle that raises the sun every morning. The desert outside is not a threat. It is a blanket protecting you until the dawn. The silence of the room deepens. The breathing of your family becomes a rhythmic tide, washing you toward the shores of sleep. You let go of the rope. You let go of the oar. You let the current take you. Now let the image of the dusty village and the scorching sun fade gently from your mind. Let the harsh brightness of the Egyptian sky soften into a deep, velvety indigo, sprinkled with the quiet light of a million unblinking stars. The heat that radiated from the limestone cliffs has dissipated, carried away on the cool breath of the night wind. You are no longer standing on the burning sand. You are floating, weightless, on the dark, calm waters of the Nile. The current is slow and steady, rocking you with a gentle, hypnotic motion, back and forth, back and forth. There is no more work to be done. The stone has been moved. The grain has been stored. The scribes have put away their papyrus scrolls, and the overseers have laid down their staffs. The entire valley is resting. From the delta to the cataract, the world has paused to breathe. Feel the tension leaving your shoulders, unspooling like a coil of rope. The muscles in your back, tight from the day's labor, are softening, melting into the support beneath you. You are safe here. The walls of your sanctuary are thick and protective. The gods of the household are watching from the shadows, their vigilance allowing you to surrender completely to the quiet. Listen to the silence. It is not empty. It is peaceful. It is the sound of time flowing smoothly, like the river itself, carrying you toward a shore of perfect rest. There is no hurry. There is no deadline. There is only this moment of profound, heavy stillness. Drift along this ancient river. Let the darkness wrap around you like cool, fresh linen. Close your eyes and let the history sleep. End of script. Sweet dreams.